let's get straight into this, Philip. I know we've got the small matter of being on the precipice of World War III, but, you know, we like to do other topics as well. Basically, there's an independent review. It's been written by Professor Alice Sullivan from the Social Research Institute at University College London. It's a review which was set up by the last government but published last night. And it's an independent review, and it looked at basically the collection of official data. So whether it's in the health service, whether it is in police, in the courts, in education, in every area of public life. And what this review has discovered, tell us something we don't already know, love, is that our data is no longer accurate. Because in lots of cases, when you fill out a form, it asks for your gender and gives you options like non-binary and other. Other than the actual facts of male and female, the actual facts matter. And this means that, for instance, a man who identifies as trans and believes or claims that he is a woman will miss out on, for instance, screening for prostate cancer because his medical records will suggest that he is a woman when actually he's a man and has a prostate. A woman identifying as a trans man, but is still, nevertheless, and always will be a woman, will miss out on cervical smear call-ups or mammograms for breast cancer. So this is a matter of life and death. We're also talking about schools data on toilets, on changing rooms and things as well. And we also crucially see it in the criminal justice system, where we've seen this bizarre, massive spike in violence and sex crimes by women, which aren't committed by women at all. They're committed by men who often terribly conveniently, very soon after their arrest, decide they're actually trans. And in court, women have actually been required in court in England to refer to the man who has sexually assaulted them as she and her. I don't know about you. If that happened to me, and the judge said, you'll go in the cells until you agree to. Well, then leave me in the cells. Give me a good book, because I ain't referring to the man who sexually assaulted me as she and her because it's his preference. And yet that is what's happening. It's what's happening in the official statistics. There are still men in this country, in England right now, who are in women's prisons because they claim to be women when they're not. This is madness.
It was complete madness. I read the article. It said even the Royal Navy Sexual Harassment Survey was done on how people identify. So
most sexual harassment, not all, but most is by men towards women or by men towards other men. And they're basically saying so.
And there are huge problems in our services. The country, gone woke. It's appalling. It really is. But it's throwing everything out because if you're going to treat everyone as androgynous, and therefore all women have to be called for a prostate exam, all men have to be called for a cervical smear. How many NHS appointments is that going to create? Oh, and then it's very easy just to change something.
But this goes far beyond, being kind. There's a lot of talk about how people like me are just bigots and transphobes. No. Again, I've said it a million times, I'll say it forever. I simply couldn't care. You want to change your name, you want to wear a dress, if you're a man or a woman, the other way around, I simply don't care. It's of no interest to me. I will treat you exactly the same as I would anyone else. Except where you're trying to perpetrate a lie, and you're trying to force everyone else, the state, and by extension me, to pretending that your perception of yourself is the truth when it factually is not. But one of the things about statistics, and we had this with the census only recently, that was going to allow gender, that got challenged, the 2021 census, by the sensible folk on this issue, that it needs to record facts, and we need facts. We need data to see, for instance, trends in health. We need to know who to call for screening and how many women aren't turning up for screening. And people say, oh, well, it doesn't really matter because there's only a few trans people. I don't know. You try going to a school in North London, I think you'll find that half the girls are identifying as trans in some schools. But this is the key thing. It only needs a small number of people to completely distort those figures, particularly when it comes to women in crime, because women commit so few crimes as a percentage of all crimes committed. If you actually have some women, a few women's crimes recorded, which are actually men's crimes, and those are added on, you see a doubling of the crime stats in some crimes. And by the way, a very large increase in the number of rapes committed by women, given that you need a penis to commit a rape in this country.
Legally.
A bit bizarre that women can actually do that.
Yeah, well, it's crazy, but we're talking of a minute percentage of the population. Why it's taking so much airtime,
why do we talk
copy
about
time,
this?
and why it's seen as something that has to influence what the vast majority of the country does, when the vast majority are completely respectful for how someone wants to dress, how they want to identify themselves, but not have a biological lie rammed down their throat. And that it's a minute percentage. You can't have a minute minority trying to dictate and impose their views on
No, but it's
everyone.
not even imposing their views, imposing new facts. Well, there aren't new facts.
Well, it's
their
views. It's not a fact.
We
it's
used
a
to
view.
call this gender dysphoria.
Yeah, exactly.
It's either a sexual fetish. You want to dress up. You're a man. You want to dress up in women's clothes, and you get your kicks out of that. That's fine. Fill your boots. I don't care. I just really don't care. Or you've got gender dysphoria. You genuinely believe that you were born in the wrong body. Well, that's not true, because no one's born in the wrong body, and that is something that needs to be treated with kindness and sympathy and empathy. Again, no issue with any of that.
A simple chromosomal test will say if someone's born in the wrong body. XX, XY. If you have if you've got the wrong genitals for your chromosomes,
there are very tiny number of people.
Minute number.
Very tiny number of people where that is the issue.
But then it's a medical issue. If it's not, then it's an identity issue.
But I'm amazed by how often, if you things like, you sign up to the library and the local library is asking you your gender and, all these non-binary other. I went having an eye test, I remember about a year ago, and I scribbled all over the form very crossly. Why are you asking for my gender with other as a preference? Why does it matter? I mean, I don't know. Is there a difference between men and women's eyes in that respect? I doubt it. I genuinely, a visit to the gynaecologist, I kid you not, actually, the gynaecologist's own form, it was a hospital form, genuinely asked, are you male, female? Like, well, I mean, if I'm male, I've got no sodding business being here.
But I have to declare that I'm not pregnant when I go and see the doctor. Yeah, it's exactly the same. Yeah, but these
I know, I get asked that. I remember being asked that at the dentist, and it's like, chance of being a fine thing, man.
Well, I got that at the dentist. I wrote yes one day, they didn't notice.
But there's at least but also you don't want to be in a situation where, asking a woman, and women are funny about their age and weight and things.
Exactly.
My God, one of the things I absolutely love on public transport in London is the baby on board badge.
Exactly.
So you're not worried to offering your seat up to a woman just because
you think she's pregnant.
Yeah, I mean,
I've made that mistake once in congratulating someone in a bus queue. Fatal mistake. You only ever do that as a man once in your life.
Oh my God. Let's just make that the phone in. But there we are, that would be fun. Look, I want to hear from you, because people think, does it matter? Well, it does matter when you've got a criminal, a rapist even. Huge percentage of people who are behind bars have committed sex offences and violence against women who now claim to be trans, desperate to get into the softer women's prisons and gain access to more victims. People say it doesn't matter. Why does this bother you? Because facts matter, and because the safety of women and children matter, and that is what this is about. And if you don't think they matter, then at least be honest about that. If you genuinely think that, and it's nearly always, the problem is nearly always men who are saying they identify as women. And by the way, we ain't using trans woman and trans man. That just confuses people. Men who identify as trans identifying men. Let's call them what they are, because use the word men. I ain't giving up the word woman. We own that. They don't. I'd love to hear from you. What is your reaction? Because this happened under the Tory watch. The Tories started taking action. We had the cash review on children and puberty blockers near the end. But basically, they didn't take any action while this was growing. Stonewall mermaids, trans ideologists and activists have absolutely taken over every single area of our public sector. The civil service, the military, judiciary, the police, the NHS, our schools. They have absolutely captured that ideology. And most of the businesses, I would say this office too, if the HR department, probably horrified by every single thing I say on air, even though I'm stating facts. No hatred, no bigotry, simple facts. But genuinely, we need to be stamping out, and we need Trump-style stamping out. Yeah. If you push this, if you deal with facts rather than people's idea of what they are on a Wednesday afternoon, you don't get any funding and you're out of a job.
It never happened in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Why all of a sudden is it something that we're having to deal with today?
Exactly.
People haven't changed.
No, exactly. And people can't change their sex. Give me a call. I want to hear from you. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Let's also talk about where we are with Ukraine. Coalition of the willing Their defence chiefs are all meeting in the outskirts of London today about what they would do in the event of a peace deal, a ceasefire deal between Ukraine and Russia. We've got Keir Starmer. He's been visiting a nuclear sub, one of our sort of old-style subs, and he's going to be basically at the sort of beginning of the building of one of our new-style subs, a keystone of our defence ability in this country. Where are we in terms of Ukraine war?
Well, don't ask me. How am I supposed to know? We've got Trump involved. No, it's fascinating. You know, we've got.
Does Trump know?
Well, there's one positive coming out of everything that, with all these phone calls between Trump, Zelensky, Putin, and all the rest of it, is that there are talks starting in Saudi Arabia, and all sides are getting together to talk. So that can only be a positive thing, because fighting is diplomacy by other means. It means that you can't talk. Now we're getting people around the table, and they are.
That's
talking.
A good thing.
That is a good thing. So tick, well done Donald Trump for doing that. All of the other things that are going on, there's different sides manoeuvring and manipulating each other the whole way through. Putin is the master manipulator. He's playing Trump because Trump's
like
looking at this from a business perspective. Putin deals with it as an old intelligence officer who plays the person. Trump's trying to play the deal. Zelensky's sitting there trying to look at how he can manoeuvre with both of them and what's going on. And Europe is sitting there sort of going, what's happening now? What do we do? But this meeting of the 30 defence chiefs from the coalition, the Willing today, which is happening at our permanent joint headquarters up at Northwood, just outside London, the MOD confirmed to me last night, is important, because you have to work out what the art of the possible is, who can contribute, and not all contributions have to be troops on the ground.
No, and some countries won't be willing to do that.
Exactly.
But here's the thing. I mean, we have to get to a point when there is a ceasefire for that to happen, but Putin has made it very clear it's his red line. I doubt very much it's a red line he would move on. There can be no troops from a NATO country in Ukraine. Pretty much all of the people of the coalition are NATO countries.
Well, we've got Australia, New Zealand, Japan as part of it, part of the coalition of Willing. So there are non-NATO countries in there, but that is if it's part of a peace plan. If it's part of President Zelensky asking for a presence and a training presence, that's a national request on a bilateral basis to other nations. So that
but
can be
Putin can still choose to see that as an act of aggression.
He can.
And a provocation. He
can, but quite conveniently, it could fall out of a requirement to be in any negotiations, any final settlement, because that's Zelensky can turn around and say, UK, can you provide us troops to help us train and understand where we've gone wrong, and say the same to every other country that's there.
Yeah, I mean this is the key demand in that phone call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. We talked about it on the show a lot yesterday. Again, I just find it extraordinary that Trump was willing to take the call when Putin was an hour late. I mean, if that isn't two fingers up to you and mocking you, J.D. Vance thought that Zelensky was disrespectful in the Oval Office. Are you kidding me? And you allowed Putin to do that? But he, basically really, really clear lines. That you think the West, the whole of the West, have to withdraw all aid and intelligence, not just the US, but all aid from everyone. But for this to go ahead. Well, the moment we do that, Ukraine is gone.
Well, and nothing requiring Putin then to stop getting the support that he's relying on from North Korea, from China, and elsewhere. So Putin is manipulating. He's putting things into phone call conversations that probably never happened, which is a traditional old Russian tactic. Put it in, put it out publicly, and let them say it didn't happen, because we'll say, oh yes, it did,
and we don't know who to believe.
Know. Yes, exactly.
I mean, that's the reality. I always just worry about what is said that we don't know about. I also just want to talk about Nicholas Prosper. He's the 19-year-old from Luton who was sentenced yesterday for a triple murder. His mother, his brother and sister. Absolutely awful tragedy. He'd also planned the biggest massacre of the 21st century. He'd planned to kill 30 children at his old primary school in Luton. I mean, we think about the impact we still have from Dunblane all those years on, the awful impact of that attack on that the South girls in Southport.
Yep.
I mean, awful that we lost 3 girls there, but we could have been so many more.
Yep.
There were 20-odd kids there, many of whom were stabbed. He basically, yet another young man spending his time in his bedroom looking at the sickest, most awful, most foul, horrible violence, obsessed with it. one good thing was that he was dragged into court to face justice, unlike Carl Clifford, the crossbow killer, and others who've been allowed to not actually face the moment in court. You're a convicted killer. As I said yesterday, I've said before, I will drag you myself up the stairs, kicking and screaming. We'll put a gag on you if you're going to scream and shout. You're going to be in court to hear your sentencing and the victim impact statements and the like. But I'm worried. How many of these people have we got?
Well, this is the real question. There's so many people, and the lockdown will have contributed to this, who've been sat in their rooms. They're fixated on what's on their devices. We don't know what they're looking at. The social media companies aren't policing what's actually going not just onto their platforms, but it would be easy for them to police what users are seeing, what of the really nasty and horrible stuff.
A lot of it is on the dark web. This stuff even wasn't on the dark web.
A lot of it isn't on the dark web. People use that as a defence, and actually the dark web is relatively easy to get to, and is probably more easily monitored. People don't realise you access the dark web through the onion ring router. The onion ring router was developed by US naval intelligence. Right. The US intelligence agencies never give people access without them having some form of visibility.
You don't. Yes, be warned. Be warned. I mean, well, that really ties in with Gareth Southgate has warned about men and boys needing role models, better role models. He gave the BBC Reese lecture last night, and we'll come on to more detail on that. But boys needing role models in real life, rather than the people, the Andrew Tates and others they're looking at online. And I think most people are just totally unaware, most parents, of what their kids are seeing online, boys and girls.
Well, yes, but role models traditionally were your parents, your immediate relatives that are around there.
Your sports coach.
Your sports coach, your teachers, your friends' parents within society.
It all became
a community. Then became but these influencers who then you get onto the reality television, and this is where it starts to fall apart, and then it gets into more detail online.
I'm just as worried about women's role models, because people who think that these Kardashian people are people even worth paying remote attention to.
How that can be on the television, I do not know, in a society which says that there are equal rights and we should not objectify people.
But it's
those
the women.
Programs are about
but the women are obsessed with objectifying other women. That's what a lot of women do.
But then why do they complain about being objectified? The two standards in society.
I know, exactly. It's quite bizarre. I mean, a lot of those programmes. I'd love to hear from you on all of the topics we were talking about, the biological sex being erased, and how important, how important it is to be. We can be respectful and kind, but we also need to care about facts. Talking about Ukraine, also, I mean, Nicholas Prosper actually being dragged into court. Fair play to that judge after we were on air yesterday doing that. I'd love to hear all your thoughts on that. And Gareth Southgate and role models as well, particularly if you've got sons, or maybe when you were younger, boys or girls, the role models you had.